So in this video, we're going to talk briefly about some methods to develop this great compassion called Bodhicitta. And so there are many ways to develop it. And the two most powerful that we're going to talk about in this series are called the 7-point mind training, or the 7-point cause and effect, and then exchanging self for others, also called Tonglen. So the 7-point cause and effect method, you kind of have to go into it with a little bit of an agreement. I don't want to say belief, but if you haven't done the logic that past and future lives are real, then you need to do that, or you need to suspend it for a while you work on it. One way that I've come to be able to bypass the belief in past or future lives when dealing with this has to do with the wiring of my brain. So the first point in the 7-point cause and effect method is called marche, and this means to recognize that all living beings have been our mothers. And if you don't believe in past or future lives, then, well, number one, it's okay. It doesn't need your permission, but it's real. And if you haven't gotten there yet, you can look at it this way. When you and I look at one another, we are creating physical parts of our brain, neural networks that help us to remember one another, to store stories about one another, and also to develop feelings about each other. So in a very real way, when we look at one another, we are each other's mother. In the sense that we gave birth to this physical stuff. So you can use that until you come to understand that past and future lives is real. So we also have to have equanimity beforehand, and that's necessary to do this, because if you hold some close and others distant, if you have some kind of bias, you can't see everyone as your own kind mother deserving your ultimate help. You'd exclude some people. So we come to, we meditate on this, seeing all sentient beings as having been our mothers, or are our mothers right now. The next step is called Jen, and this means to remember the kindness that was given to us by our mothers. Jen means remember, kindness, and Jen means to remember. So the first step, marche, leads us to this one, because if you don't see everyone as having been your mother in the past, then you can't see everyone as having been kind to you. You won't think about the good that they did for you if you don't see them all in some kind of beneficial role. Now the next step, the third step, is called Jinso. So Jin again means kindness, and So means to repay that kindness. So we have to decide to repay the kindness of our mothers. The second step leads to this one, in that if you don't see your mother as having been kind to you, then you have no reason to pay her back. The next step is called Yeongjampa, and it means to love all people with the intensity of a mother for her only child, and wish that they could have every good thing. That's what love is. It's a wish that others have happiness. So the previous 3 points lead to this one. For once you recognize everyone as your mother, acknowledge her kindness and your debt, and agree to help her in return, the natural result is to want to give her every good thing. Which then leads us to this next step, which is called Nyinji Chempo, which means great compassion. And we feel great compassion for all living beings, and we want them to be free of suffering. The fourth step, which was Yeongjampa, is a cause for this, because if you don't want them to be happy, then the point of having this intense love, then you have no reason to want them to be free of suffering. So we have to love them first, and then develop this wish that they be free from suffering and its causes. This leads us to the next step, which is called Laksan Namdak, and it literally means a special, pure thought. And it has to do with the responsibility. So we decide to help everyone, even if you have to do it all by yourself, regardless of the difficulty, without being discouraged if no one helps you. The fifth step is a cause for this. Because if you don't want them to be free from suffering, you will certainly not choose to remove their suffering. So here's a good point to pause for a moment and think, well, why are we developing compassion? Why is that so important? If you went back in America about 100 years ago, you asked the average person whether or not exercise leads to a better body, they'd all say no. And it took Dr. Kellogg, yes, the cereal tycoon's brother, going around the country and setting up these exercise camps where people could actually come for a few months, do these exercises, measure their progress, and see for themselves, because in that case, cause and effect is, quite distant from one another. So now we know the same thing with compassion. If we want to be happy, we have to generate great compassion for others. The more compassion we have, the more happiness we have, and we see them intimately connected in the workings in the brain when we look at brain scans. There's a terrific video. There's great research on one former molecular biologist turned Tibetan Buddhist monk named Mathieu Ricard that MIT did and hooked up this sensitive biofeedback, and they had to check their calibration of their software to see if they were getting the right readings or not, because this man who had done over 50,000 hours of compassion meditation was registering 800% higher than anything they had seen before. And so he got the label the world's happiest man. So compassion is necessary for our happiness. And so that's why it's so important on the path to Buddhism. So the last step in this meditation is called Jangchub Sem. And this means the wish to become enlightened for the sake of every living being that is. And so this is where we develop bodhicitta and we become a bodhisattva. The previous step is the cause for this one, because once you're determined to help everyone, then you must gain the capacity to do so by becoming a fully enlightened Buddha. Now, there is a myth, and I've mentioned this in one of my videos also on YouTube, that some cultures and some practitioners in America who have been introduced to other forms of Buddhism say that a bodhisattva is one who gives up the wish for enlightenment or gives up nirvana in order to help all sentient beings. And the Tibetans chuckle at that and say the best way to help all sentient beings is to become fully enlightened, because then you gain the omniscient mind. You can see what their karma is. You can give them the advice of what to abandon and what to adopt. And, if nirvana was a place, sure, bodhisattvas are going to be the last ones in. They'll hold the door open for everyone else to be, to walk through. But it's not a place. It's a state of mind. So imagine that you're not going to go to college and learn methods of education. You just decide to go into a classroom and start teaching. There are refined ways of being able to educate students. Or if you want to be a firefighter, but you decide not to go through the training, you just run into burning buildings. Well, you're walking past a building, you hear two people screaming inside, the building's on fire. You run in and you grab them both and you get ready to run out, and then realize you don't know what to do next. And so now there are 3 screaming voices in the burning building. So it's very, very important to understand that not everything that you hear in Buddhism is accurate. You need to go to the source, and Tibetan Buddhism is an excellent source of the original Nalanda teachings from India. Some cultures corrupted the teachings and culturized them. Now then, the next one, the Tonglen, is called exchanging self and others. And this is a meditation where you visualize sitting in front of somebody, and as you breathe in, you take all of their negative, all of their pain in the form of black soot into yourself, and send out to them all of your potential for happiness. So I like to do this in several steps, where you sit in front of the person and you see, first of all, as you're breathing, you're sitting there, they can't see you. They've got all of the negative energy, all of their suffering and pain is all in their muscles like black soot. And as you breathe in, as you inhale, you visualize all of that coming into their heart, all of it leaving their muscles and coalescing here in their heart. And you do that for about 10 breaths or so until you really visualize seeing it clearly. Then as you breathe in, you pull it out of them, and it comes out of their nose, and you pull it out bit by bit until it's one great big ball of black. And their whole body is clean and clear, like an empty glass vessel. Then with each breath, you bring it closer towards you and really try to feel that negativeness, that negative energy coming towards you. And then I really can't do this step anymore without it causing a gag reflex in me, but you visualize bringing it in piece by piece, backwards, like what you did to pull it out of the other person. You bring it into yourself. And I feel it, this nasty black oil going down my throat, but it should stop right here about the thymus, just above the heart. And then for a moment, hold that there as you visualize some selfish energy, something specific that you've done selfishly as a fire just below your belly. And you want to really feel this sense of regret, not guilt. Guilt keeps you in the past. You want to feel regret. Regret is an attitude that wishes it could undo what you did, but you can't, so you're going to go into the future with the lessons you learned from it and a vow to not do it again. But you want to feel this selfish energy in the pit of your stomach. And then in one quick breath, you visualize these two energies coming together and eradicating one another. They're gone. The selfish energy is gone, and the negativity that person carried, you destroyed it all. And all that is left is this radiant sunshine in your heart. And sit there for a moment feeling this joy, and then send the light rays into the other person and fill their entire body with this white, healing, beautiful light until you see them smiling and happy. And then you're both sitting there like radiant suns, and then you spontaneously radiate those lights out everywhere. And when the rays of light hit other sentient beings, they instantly go through that purification, clean and purified and happy. That's a beautiful, beautiful meditation practice to do. Now, this isn't a concentration meditation. This is what the Tibetans would call gom. Gom means to familiarize yourself. This is where your mind is moving and you're visualizing, and you're this kind of mental rehearsal that you're doing. But then when you're done and you feel that sense of accomplishment and joy and compassion, sit as long as you can feeling that. Emboss that into your soul. This is a good practice. So these are some two of the methods for developing bodhicitta, and you can practice those. If you have any questions whatsoever, you can leave them in the comments. Be sure to click the subscribe button and turn on your notifications to get new videos from me. We're going to go on into the next video and talk about emptiness.